Welcome everybody to our virtual training for Africa Fire Mission. AFM volunteers are excited to provide this training to you, and you're encouraged to share what you learned from this training with your colleagues. This training is provided free of charge, and it does not provide a certificate of attendance. The training will be recorded, and when possible, those recordings will be available on Africa Fire Mission's YouTube channel, and you can also find links to that on our website. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to pass it to Jose to start with a few words of encouragement and prayer.
Thank you so much, Nancy, and thank you everyone for joining us. We are always happy to host you as Africa Fire Mission. Our main intention is just to create opportunities in the fire service and to be of an encouragement to each and every person who's a first responder and in particular a firefighter. Thank you everyone who's in Zambia who's joined us, and we are always grateful to have you in place. Usually before we start for just about 3 to 5 minutes, I give a word of encouragement, and I use the book from FCF International, 90 Days of Encouragement, and this is the 3rd edition. So today we're going to just read from day 15. It's called, the topic is A Way of Escape, and it is by Craig Duck. Craig Duck is a president and missionary of FCF, and he's right here with us. So we'll read 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 1 to 13. It says, "No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to humanity. God is faithful, and he will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation he will also provide a way of escape so that you are able to bear it." That is 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. On the fire ground, there are many different tasks that need to be completed to put the fire out. Some companies will be operating with a handline with the goal of putting out the fire and checking for extension. Others, however, will have to work without the aid of the hose line. These tasks include search and rescue operations and rooftop ventilation. For those companies, it is always good to have a plan of escape just in case conditions deteriorate and have to bail out. I have always taught firefighters to know fire behavior, building construction, and have situation awareness to make competent decisions. In life, we have difficulties. Jesus reminded us that in John 16:33, God has never promised to keep us from falling. When we look to solving life's problems our way, which is so typical for firefighters and first responders, we are sure to get in trouble. God knows what we can bear and will only allow us to go through trials according to what he knows we can handle. God will make a way of escape if he would but fully trust in him and his power for every situation. This should encourage us to flee from sin and cling to God. We cannot fall from sin if we choose to obey God. Lord, help me to fully trust in you and your power. Well, just to add on what Chaplain Craig Duck wrote on this, I remember actually a situation that I had on Thursday, whereby I was in a fire at Babadogo, just here in Nairobi, in a factory called Chandaria. Chandaria Industries makes toiletries, toilet papers, towels, and things like that. And one of the godowns actually caught fire. So when I responded to the fire, the first thing, of course, and it's really amazing what we are learning here, we put it into practice. So the first thing I did, of course, I went and reported to the duty officer, and I was given the same duty of actually going to check around the facility. So I reported back and I told him that there's actually an exit door. There are 2 doors, but the exit door is actually locked and we need to actually get to open it. Yeah. So so that we can have actually a point of escape just in case the fire was too much. And that actually reminded us that, you should always have an escape plan before you can actually go and help people to put out the fire, because safety starts with you. Safety on the fire ground starts with you. If you are not safe, tell me, there's no reason for you being there. Make sure first of all you're safe before you can start saving other people. So that's the encouragement of today. And this book actually, I have some few copies, but somehow we can, if I can get in touch with you, we can actually get to distribute some. There are not many, but if you're interested, let me know, and we can see how we can get to you. Back to you, Nancy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose. Thanks for getting us started with that word of encouragement. So our instructor today is Tyler Prater from St. Louis Fire Department. Some of you will remember him from our academy in Kenya last year in 2019 at Kenya National Airports. So we are very excited to have him with us, and I'm going to hand it over to Tyler for the presentation.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for those great words, Jose. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, is being safe, not necessarily during the fire ground, but before and after our activities on the fire ground. All right, so today we're going to talk about firefighter health and wellness. It's a very important topic nowadays, as far as getting ourselves healthy before the fire and keeping ourselves healthy after the fire, both mentally, physically, and spiritually. So a little bit about myself. My name is Tyler Prater. I am 24 years old. I'm a rescue specialist assigned to Rescue Squad 2 for the St. Louis Fire Department. I've been a professional firefighter for 5 years, and before that, I've been a volunteer for 8 years. I started in a very small town south of St. Louis. We had about 12 firefighters and 2 fire engines, so kind of very similar to how things are in Africa. Some of my hobbies: I like to ride motorcycles, I like to travel, and here lately I've been doing a lot of scuba diving. You can really do some great social distancing underwater, I found out. Just a couple pictures here. Rescue Squad number 2. So my girlfriend Megan and I were, this is underwater in the Gulf of Mexico. And then some traveling, the beautiful sights of Utah on my motorcycle there. So the first point I want to make is, let's talk about the silent killer. The number one killer of firefighters is sudden cardiac problems, whether it be sudden cardiac arrest, heart attacks, strokes, just not feeling well after a fire. And those things are right now is trending as the number one killer of firefighters, not just in the United States, but across the world. Maintaining our health is just as important as maintaining our equipment. As Jose said earlier, we have to be safe on the fire ground before we can save others. And that goes all the way back to our health. And we also need to be better at maintaining a level of fitness. I know right now during COVID, that's been tough. I've put on a few COVID pounds, just like everyone else has. But maintaining a level of fitness to fulfill our roles as firefighters is very, very important.
Demands and dangers to firefighters around the globe are countless, but the leading cause of death for firefighters is not burns or smoke, it's heart attacks. In fact, firefighters are 300% more likely to die on the job from a heart attack than the rest of the population. In Georgia in 2006, so many died from heart attacks on the job in Gwinnett County, it became an epidemic that was broadcast across the local media. The story revolved around the local fire chief's cry for help. That grabbed the attention of nationally renowned genetics researcher Dr. Robert Sapurko and his team.
He was complaining essentially that he was sick and tired of going to funerals for his firefighters because they didn't die in the fire. They didn't die doing things that most people would encounter. They died of a heart attack. And so he said, why are all my firefighters dying from a heart attack? Must be an answer for this. Who can help?
Dr. Sapurko had spent years developing advanced genetic tests for heart disease through the Berkeley Heart Lab in California. He applied those tests to assess 1 million genes in every single firefighter, pinpointing whether the first responder had the genetic markers for heart disease. It was the perfect way to determine why firefighters were dying from heart attacks at 3 times the normal rate.
That's much more complicated than just what's your bad LDL cholesterol, what's your good HDL cholesterol. And we've done a series of what are called heart disease regression studies. So how can you make the heart disease actually go backwards and get better?
So in conjunction with St. Joseph's Hospital in Atlanta, doctors, researchers, and firefighters launched what would become a $1 million federally funded landmark study.
FEMA was interested in this for a number of reasons, but the most important reason is that in order to protect the public health and well-being, they have to protect the health of the firefighters. About 75% of them have their heart attack going to the fire, fighting the fire, or coming back from the fire. So if they're there to help you and save your life, but they have a heart attack while they're doing that, they can't help you.
The study tested 300 firefighters from Gwinnett County, one of the largest geographic and most populated areas in Georgia.
I've been with Gwinnett for 29 years, a little over 20 years.
For 50-year-old firefighter Steve Brown, fitness was as much a part of his life as all his years with Gwinnett Fire.
I was always health conscious. I always wanted to be healthy, and stay in good shape.
And because his father had his first heart attack at 45, Steve knew he had to be extra diligent about his own health, for himself and for his daughter.
Well, the reason I did the study was because, I wanted the information. It was a great opportunity to just find out as much information as I could about my own health, not only for me, but to pass on to my kids, and if they were going to have any kind of problems in the future, then here's the blueprint right here.
He told me he was doing the study and told me when we got the test results back, he's so athletic, I can't think that would happen to him. So.
After 6 Ironman competitions, 20 top place in marathons, and dozens of triathlons, Steve was in the shape of his life, but no amount of physical training could prepare him or the researchers for what they found.
I was devastated, to say the least.
Cardiovascular nurse Brenda Garrett-Saperto was in charge of notifying those firefighters most at risk over the phone immediately.
So when I got his results back, it's like, I just looked at it and paused. And I thought, I got to wait for the right time to call him. This is going to take a little while. So Steve was one of those that when I called and said, hey, this is Brendan here. I said, yeah, well, let's chat.
I just couldn't believe it. I could not believe it.
Steve had triple vessel heart disease. He was in the high-risk category and was the perfect example of nature trumping nurture. Steve wasn't alone. The study found that more than 1/3 of the 300 firefighters studied had undiagnosed heart disease.
I heard of several guys that had some problems on the test, whether it was calcium or high blood pressure or whatever.
In addition to identifying those at risk, the study also proved that environmental factors of the job, such as stress and psychological pressures, interacted with the gene for heart disease and became a trigger for heart attacks.
We were quite surprised by a number of things in this study. First of all the firefighters look great. They're in terrific shape. They carry heavy loads. They carry 100 pounds of equipment going into these burning buildings. You look at them and say, wow, this guy's the epitome of a good-looking male.
Just those top golf, I got I got road stations, I got to do after I leave. It's a matter of regrouping and figuring out where to go from now, where to go from this point. Whereas if I didn't have this information, I'd be rocking along not knowing anything about it, and until it's too late or something happens.
Initial shock, surprise, but thereafter, typically motivating.
Dr. Basil Margolis, prevention expert at St. Joseph's, took the reins of the study and the treatment of the diagnosed responders.
The good news side is that we're picking it up way ahead of time. And so you can turn things around. So that we pick up the risk factors. If we act on these now, we can prevent heart disease down the road.
All of the firefighters with poor results were immediately put into a personalized cardiac treatment program at St. Joseph's that included everything from diet and exercise to interventions and even surgeries.
I've changed my eating habits, and I'm doing more active and working out.
And the firefighters, physicians, and researchers began spreading the word about the findings. Steve Brown wrote a letter to encourage more of his colleagues to get a monthly test.
We treat people every day. We tell them to go to the hospital and find out what's going on with their health, but take our own advice. It would be very sad to spend your whole life working here, and when it's time to retire, your health is so bad that you can't enjoy it. Some of these guys have gotten me through some of the hardest times in my life, and I would just hate for something to happen to somebody that I care that much about.
So he recently had his own daughter tested as well.
I've told people at work after he got tested with that, I hope that he does something to control this, because he is our boss, and I want to encourage anybody to do this stuff. Absolutely. Because losing somebody too early is just not worth it when you can do things to prevent it. It's just senseless. Absolutely.
Tyler, you're muted.
There we go. Figured it out. Thanks, Nancy, for sharing that video with us. It brings up some very good points as far as taking care of ourselves. Sometimes, in some cases, no matter how well we take care of ourselves, we run that risk of, due to our jobs and the sudden jolt of going from doing nothing to being into a fire, the adrenaline rush, things of that nature can really put a strain on our bodies. So the risk factors to firefighters, as what was mentioned in the video, is stress. Studies are showing no matter how healthy we are, the rigors of being a firefighter is taxing on our bodies and our hearts. And so how do we figure out we are showing those signs of stress? Is we got to figure out what the signs are. But in general, firefighters are tough and rugged members of a team, right? We are these big bad firefighters. We're tough. We're here to fight the fire. If my shoulder hurts, if my chest hurts, if I'm out of breath, oh well, I'm big bad and tough, and I'm not going to say anything about it. That's the wrong answer nowadays. That we're finding out is these firefighters are having these signs and symptoms of cardiac problems and other health issues, and they're not saying anything because we want to be the big bad tough guy. Like it says on the bottom here, we're ignoring those warning signs of cardiac issues, and they could lead to bigger problems. So what could be a solution to that is what we asked ourselves here in St. Louis, is what can we do to find a solution to that problem? A little backstory, we've had several, and I mean probably 25 to 30 firefighters within the last 2 years have to take a disability and not be able to be firefighters anymore due to career-ending heart attacks. One of them actually passed away as a result of his heart attack. He was working on a house fire, thought he had hurt his shoulder. He went to the ambulance, and the EMTs and the medics looked him over and said, it's just a shoulder injury. Went home and died of a massive heart attack that night. So it hits home here in St. Louis. So we found out the implementation of a health and wellness program is a great tool to combat these issues. Here in St. Louis, we face some budget issues. There's not enough money to go around. We're a big city, and we need to provide a large service and we're short on funds. So this is how we found we can implement this type of program that is low cost. And some of these is just education in how to eat healthy. Instead of eating some fried chicken, we're going to have some grilled chicken. Or instead of eating a big nasty greasy cheeseburger and a milkshake, we're going to have a glass of fresh juice and fruits and vegetables, things of that nature. And one of them is exercise. We found out that a lot of firefighters, the only exercise that they get is when they are operating on the fire ground. And that's not the time to train, right? We don't train when we're on the fire ground. We train before we get to the fire ground. And that same needs to go with exercise. And the last solution to our problem was keeping an eye on our buddies. We really need to take care of our buddies. If one of our friends or one of our fellow firefighters is showing that he's fatigued, if he's pale, if he can't catch his breath, if he's just not being himself, we need to report that to the medics and the EMTs and make sure he gets checked out. So some other issues that we brought up is how can we bring health and wellness to a fire scene itself? Fire scenes are chaotic. There's craziness going on. There's fires to be fought, rescues to be made, tons of people there. Things can get chaotic very, very quickly. As it says here, fire scenes are exciting, can change in the blink of an eye. And one of those ways here in St. Louis, we can check on our buddies and to monitor the health of other firefighters is conducting a rehab station. I'd like to hear from some of you guys at the end of the presentation here on if you guys do conduct a rehab or if it's even possible for you guys to conduct some type of rehab station. Basically, where the rehab station is where after we do our duty on the fire ground, we're going to come back, we're going to take our gear off, we're going to cool off, get some drinking water, maybe put some cool towels around us because all that gear is hot, right? We're inside the fire, we're near the fire, we have all of our PPE on, we have our masks, we have our SCBAs on, and it's hot, it's nasty, and we're asking a lot of our bodies. And it's okay to take a rest. It's okay to step back and rest for a second. And another key point of the rehab station is having the EMTs check our vital signs, whether if it would be a heart rate or a blood pressure, a pulse oxygen reading, things of that nature to understand if our bodies are in a good enough shape to return back to the fire ground. So Nancy, there's another link here on the bottom for a short video about how to set up a rehab station. I'm going to stop sharing here if you can get that to play for me.
Firefighters rush in, the blaze isn't their only battle.
You're running, 2, 3, maybe even 500 degrees. When we come out of the structure, all that heat is still inside our gear.
With temperatures in the triple digits, fighting fires during Sonoran summers can be dangerous. But Mesa crews have a solution. It's called the rehab truck.
Oh, it's great.
During a fire, crews will rotate in and out. They'll come to the rehab truck, take off their gear, and rehydrate beneath a shady canopy.
And when you come out of that fire, you're so hot, you're completely dehydrated, you're sweated all the way through your clothes. The last thing you want to do is be standing out in the sun without the canopy.
Attendants monitor vital signs to make sure crews can stay in the fight, while a fan sprays them with cool water to bring their core temperatures down. And while these guys rest up, another crew fights the flames. For these firefighters who wear up to 75 pounds worth of gear, the rehab truck is crucial to their work.
It's extremely critical to be able to get our guys back in service and rehab as quickly as possible.
Because without a chance to cool off, this crew might not be able to beat the heat on their next call. Brian McElhatton, ABC 15 News.
All right, so that video there with that type of rehab station is obviously a very, very high budget item. That fire department had a whole truck devoted to a rehab station. We don't have anything near that here in St. Louis. Nowhere near that extravagant. Our rehab station is as simple as a 5-gallon bucket full of water right out from the side of the truck, right out from the fire hose, with some old rags and old shirts and stuff that aren't any good to wear. We'll dip them in the water, throw them over our necks, over our heads to cool ourselves down. Some drinking water, if at all possible, and a very, very basic medical kit that has a blood pressure cuff and a stethoscope. Sorry about that. That way we can determine our vital signs and make sure that they are within normal limits before we return back to the fire. And one of the great ways to go about it is to start conducting a rehab after every incident, whether if it's a building fire, a rescue situation, or even training. That way we can come up with a baseline vital signs where you kind of know where your ranges are at. Whether if you know your blood pressure normally trends high, if it normally trends low, or if it's somewhere right in the middle. That way you have kind of an idea of where your blood pressure is and your vital signs are. That way you can make an informed decision of, okay, I'm healthy enough to return back to the fight, or I need to sit this one out. So the goal of a rehab station, as I kind of stated in the video, is to keep our firefighters in the fight longer. We have found that, and it works, we found that we can keep our firefighters in the fight longer if they can take a step back, peel their gear off, have a drink of water, cool down for a second, and then gear back up and go back to the incident. Sometimes we can do that 2, 3, maybe 4 times, versus if you just worked hard the whole time through without taking a break. We found out that we can get about 3, 4 hours of working time with firefighters that have been rehabbed versus only about an hour's worth of working time when we just run them straight through the incident. Like we mentioned in the video, we're going to monitor those vital signs, hydrate, and rest until our bodies are ready to return to the fight. We should not let a firefighter go back to the incident until his vital signs are back within normal limits. Now that's a key point. What is normal? That's up for debate, but that also goes back to how I spoke earlier about finding out what your individual normal is. So here's some tips on how to make a low-cost rehab kit. This is stuff that sometimes it's just laying around the fire station, or we can find at very, very low cost. But the essentials of a rehab kit are to cool, hydrate, and rest our firefighters. The items typically found are drinking water, rags or old shirts to soak in some water so we can put it over our heads and use for cooling. Basic medical supplies. It could be something as simple as ACE wrap, a bandage, things of that nature to kind of, if we do incur a very small injury while fighting the fire, we can wrap it up and go back to the fire. Blood pressure cuffs and stethoscopes. Those are the 2 key items to monitor our cardiac health in the field. You don't need any special equipment. You don't need any cardiac monitors, things of that nature. Just a simple blood pressure cuff and a stethoscope and a stopwatch to check pulses with is all you really need to get a kind of a rough ballpark idea of what our cardiac health is before we return to the fire. So now we ask ourselves, what do we do when things go wrong? We can practice all these things. We can prepare a lot. What do we do when things go wrong in our job? And one of these things that goes wrong most often is a sudden cardiac arrest in the fire ground. And it's very common during intense physical, fire ground, and rescue operations. So this next video, we're going to talk about firefighter down CPR. If we come across a firefighter or witness a firefighter that has their PPE on, has their breathing apparatus on, is engaging in firefighting activities, and they have what's called a sudden cardiac arrest, where their heart goes out of whack, it shuts down, and they are now unconscious. So Nancy, we got a little bit of time. If you could, I'll share your screen back over and play this long version for the fire department CPR there for me, please.
Firefighters face many challenges due to the modern fire environment, and training is more important than ever.
Sorry, my video got lost there. Just a second.
Thanks to the UL Firefighter Safety Research Institute.
Firefighter Down CPR 10-step process. Objectives. Initiate immediate CPR on a firefighter in full turnout gear with an SCBA that suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. Remove firefighter from the turnout gear and SCBA without interrupting compressions. Step 1, Rescue 1. Position firefighter's SCBA between legs. Step 2, Rescue 2. Pop open chest clip and initiate high-quality compression. Step 3, Rescue 1. Open SCBA bypass valve. Steps 4 through 8 should be performed in a coordinated method, but simultaneously to the best of the ability of the rescue. Do not interfere with compressions, and do not interrupt compression. Step 4, Rescue 1. Remove helmet, mask, and hood. Step 5, Rescue 3. Start unbuckling the jacket from the bottom up. Step 6, Rescue 1. Loosen shoulder straps and position arms above the neck. Step 7, Rescue 1 and Rescue 3. Work zipper open. Do not interfere with compression. Step 8, Rescue 1. Hold the jacket and SCBA. Prepare for pull down. Step 9, Rescue 3 and Rescue 4. Perform pull down by grabbing one leg each and pulling the victim out of the gear. Step 10, all rescuers initiate comprehensive resuscitation bundle.
Awesome. Thank you again, Nancy. So fire department CPR, that is a great drill to be able to do at your fire station with your firefighters. It doesn't take any extra equipment, doesn't take any extra gear. You put on your PPE and your breathing apparatus. You get a crew together. Watch the video a few times. That video can be found on YouTube. It's called Firefighter Down CPR. I think Nancy shared the link for us there on the chat. That's such an easy drill to do at your fire station. On your drill nights or your meeting nights or however often you guys do your drills. It's a very, very great skill to have and learn. So kind of moving forward here, along the lines of firefighter health and wellness, Another big killer of firefighters right now has been mental health issues. We have to remember to check on our fellow firefighters after a tough call, whether if it's a severe loss of life or a very gruesome scene. Those are tough things to deal with, and we have to talk about them. But mental health issues is another obstacle for firefighters to overcome. Every firefighter has dealt with this. I have dealt with this. The people I've worked with have dealt with this. It's mental health issues that come from just the rigors of our job, the things that we see every day in our job. But the number one thing is to remember to check in on our fellow firefighters. More often than not, we meet at the fire hall, we meet at the fire station, we go to the call, and then we go home, and that's it. We don't send our friends a message. We don't call our friends on the phone. Well, before COVID, we even invite them. We don't invite them over to our house for meals and to fellowship and things like that. But it's very important, especially right now with COVID and the social distancing and things of that nature, to remember to check in on our fellow firefighters. When all this goes down, or if you feel comfortable with it, invite them over for a meal. Get to know them better. Get to know their friends and families. When I was in a basic firefighter school in St. Louis, one of our homework assignments in the fire academy was to get to know the person who we were paired with, our partner at the scene. It's just little things like, do they have a pet? What is their pet's name? What is their wife's name? Do they have any children? How old are they? When's their birthday? Get to know these people. These friends are they're your friends. They're not just fellow firefighters. They are your friends. Because remember, their life is going to be in your hands one day, or vice versa. Their life might be in their hands. And we want to build that bond between our fellow firefighters as the family we are as firefighters, to be there for each other. So this last video here is a friend of mine from Rockford, Illinois, and he shared his story publicly about his struggles with mental health illness and mental health issues and how he overcame it. So this will be our last video and our last topic. Nancy, if you could fire that video up for us.
My name is Jason Patton. I am a 11-year veteran firefighter. I'm also the creator of Fire Department Chronicles. I make funny videos for firefighters. But May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And because of that, I wanted to tell you guys a story about myself, come to you guys with something that's a little more real, a little more honest with how I felt in the past, especially since there's been so many firefighter suicides and so much mental health issues in first responders. Roughly 3 years ago, I was suffering with some depression. I've had some depression issues throughout my life, but for some reason 3 years ago, it became a lot worse than it had ever been. I'm normally able to deflect it or kind of laugh it off with some friends, but for some reason, this particular scenario was a lot worse than I had ever dealt with. I had my first thought of suicide when I was a little bit younger, thought about it a little bit, but it kind of went away. And then in the time where it got the worst, 3 years ago, I had a small thought of suicide. It was maybe suicide would make it better. And then as the depression got a little bit worse, as the thoughts got worse, the suicide came up more and more and more. And then I started to fantasize about it. I started to think about it more. I started to think of the different ways that I could kill myself, the fastest ways, so on and so forth. But that last one where I was legitimately sitting or laying on my gym floor, going through the process, I had never actually thought about and envisioned putting a gun in my mouth and pulling the trigger and that being it. That had never come to my brain the way that it did in that moment. And that's when I knew something wasn't right. So I've actually been personally affected by suicide. My dad's best friend killed himself. It was rough because his kids were really young at the time, and I have a 3-year-old daughter. And I remember they were getting a divorce, and he wasn't okay with it. So he instead of trying to work through it or think about his children, he went into the bathroom and shot himself while his family was in the living room. And I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to want to do that because you're just tired of it. You don't want to deal with the process anymore. So I felt his pain, and I was young at the time, but I can't imagine leaving my kids because I had to see what his kids dealt with after that. His kids had to grow up without a father. In fact, his one child didn't even realize that he killed himself until he was 10 years older. It's not fair. It's not fair, and it hurts me to think that instead of giving it time, working through it, he took the way out, and his family had to suffer because of it. It took me a long time to really come to process this. I've been a firefighter for 11 years, and I've seen a lot of bad things, and I've seen my fellow firefighters kill themselves because instead of talking to each other, instead of doing what was best for themselves, they decided to take their own lives. That should never be the option. If the last option is you talking to someone, that has to be the option. Your brothers and sisters are here for you. You're never alone. You are never alone, and it does not make you less of a man or less of a woman or less of a first responder to talk to the people around you or utilize the people that are there to help you. I promise you, you are loved. We all are. But you have to utilize that love. You have to let go. I came very close to killing myself, and the only thing that stopped me was I didn't want to be a statistic. We're better than that. Use the people around you. There are numbers out there that you can call. People will always be there to talk to you. Killing yourself is never the option. I hope my story will help you. I hope my story will inspire you to talk to people, to laugh about stuff, but always seek the end result, which is peace. Thank you so much for listening to my story.
So one thing I really want to reiterate after that video is that it's okay to ask for help. It is okay to seek help or to talk to your friends, talk to your fellow firefighters, talk to anyone who you trust about some of those mental health issues we could be experiencing before and after a call. Sometimes they're cumulative. Sometimes it isn't just one bad call, but it's 20 really bad calls or 20 just okay calls. But over time, our body bottles them all up and just doesn't know what to do with them. And somehow we have to release that. We have to get rid of those bad feelings somehow. And for me personally, how do I cope with that? It's hanging out with my fellow firefighters. It's sharing a meal with them, just having fun with them, hanging out. We'll go out and we'll go fishing together, or we'll go for a walk together. We'll hang out together. We'll hang out in the front yard together and just be together. That's how I get through those types of things. But remember, it is okay to ask for help, whether if it's medical help, spiritual help, mental help, even help on a fire scene. If you don't have to be the tough man. If you need help, it's okay to ask for it. And remember, we're all in this fight together. We are one big family of firefighters, and especially AFM, an even bigger family of uniting firefighters across the world. We are one big family here, and don't feel ashamed to reach out. I'm encouraging you to reach out to any of us for help from anything. If you guys need it, we're here for you. So here's my crew here. This is who I hang out with. These are my friends. These are my best friends. We're really tight. We know each other's wives. We know each other's children. We know each other's pets. We know where everybody lives. This is my family. And I really want you guys to be the same way with your firefighters and your fellow firefighters. All right, that's the end of the presentation. I'm sure there's some questions about some of the things we have covered. I know Jose had some words, Nancy, and I'll hang around for tea.
Thank you, Tyler. So also just want to take this time to remind you that the trainings will be on our website, and I'll post the link here in a moment. We'll have those updated within the next 24 hours with hopefully the video on YouTube and also the presentation itself. Also, if you will complete our evaluation, that will really help us in continuing to offer the best programs possible for you.
All right, thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Tyler. It's always great catching up with you, and thank you for the very good lesson that is actually absolutely timing. Just about this early week, we had a situation where some firefighters had to go and rescue a mother who had drowned his 2 children. So you can imagine what the firefighters went through. So without further ado, I would open the floor to anybody who would want to ask any question or give a comment. The floor is open. And if you have any question, you can always lift up your hands, and the AFM helpers in the background will prompt whoever has lifted their hand. Yes, Athman Bacha. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, sir.
Actually, first, said congratulations to our presenter, Mr. Taylor. What you take us through today is very good topics. In fact, what we are facing a lot as a firefighters in our side, I think what you've trained today will just give us maybe a step to live longer, as per your another video for the silent killer for firefighter is cardiac, and that is true. And a lot of things, in part from our side, we don't have a proper equipment to go fighting for kind of that kind of fires. But actually, I hope from this your presentation, I think so we will have to come up with a very concretive way forward, so that we can now maybe have a family in firefighters, so that we can work together and know each other, and that I think so. I'm really happy for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those words, Athman, and especially being a part of a family in the fire service is super important. It goes more than just working together on the fire ground. Those relationships extend beyond the fire ground and beyond the fire station to home. I have such a huge family due to the fire departments in AFM. I'm friends with firefighters across the world at this point. It is just absolutely amazing the type of family that we have here in the fire service, and to get to know the people that you work with every day is super important. So if you do come across those issues, whether it be mental health, physical health, any issues whatsoever, you guys can all come together as a big family and overcome them. Thank you.
Thank you, Athman. Anybody else? We have some 4 minutes to go. The floor is open. I'm flipping through just to see. Yes, Errol, go ahead, sir.
Thanks, thank you so much. Hi, Tyler. Okay, my question is, the CPR method, how fast can it be done when someone is in the fire itself, as in the fire ground itself?
Great question. How fast? The question was how fast can we rescue the firefighter from the building and start CPR? Correct. That really depends on the situation, right? If the firefighter is very deep inside the structure fire, if something has fell on top of him, things of that nature. But really, what the trend is showing, right? Firefighters always work with a partner, correct? We should never be by ourselves on a fire ground, and we should always be checking in on our buddies. So realistically, if we notice a firefighter goes down unconscious and we suspect a cardiac arrest, that buddy can then start bringing that firefighter out of the fire, and he's calling for help. He's yelling, he's calling for help, he's trying to get attention to himself, to get more help to pull that firefighter out. On average, it takes roughly 3 to 4 equipped firefighters to pull one hurt firefighter out of a building. It's hard work. It's you have their body weight, and then you have the weight of their PPE, and now we're pulling them out of the building, right? It's even more work to pull a firefighter out of the building than it is to put the fire out. But the answer to your question, it's really just dependent on the situation. But we try to practice for all those situations, right? I really don't have a good answer for that. It really depends on how far into the fire they're at. If they're right at the door, right? If they're right inside the door of the building, boom, we can just pull them out within 5 or 6 seconds, right? But if they are 100 meters inside the building, then we have to pull them 100 meters back out. But the goal of the CPR is once the firefighter makes it out of the building, we don't want to delay CPR whatsoever. As soon as that firefighter makes it out of the building, we're going to start that 4-step CPR process. Awesome. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Errol, for your packed up questions. I always appreciate you being in the meeting and the sacrifice you always give. 1 more minute to a question or a comment. The floor is open. I don't want to leave anybody behind. I'm flipping through just to see. I don't want to let Chaplain Craig, I'd put you on the line, sir. Say a word, sir.
Well, thanks for having me. This has been great and good training by AFM as always.
You're welcome, sir. Always happy to have you, and always also good for us to use your 90-day of encouragement books. Please continue removing more what do you call it, chapters or something? I'm not so sure. Versions, that will be great for us. Are there people who would want to ask a question? Okay. I believe that we had a very great session today. Mental health in the fire service is real. It's just that it's not common for us to talk about it. People are ashamed. I'm not so sure why, because I guess because people are afraid to be called mentally ill. But in the fire service, because we are our brother's keepers, we need to open up. And it's okay not to be okay in your mind. You need to speak out so that you can get help. It is okay. So never ever feel alone. Reach out and we shall be able now to help you out.